Hello, my people, and welcome to Fintech Chatter, the podcast where I chat with fintech leaders about their secrets to success. We're running another special series, and this time we're going to be talking about how we bridge the gap between TradFi and digital assets. Today's guest is Morty Tollo, the co-founder of Elbate. Morty, welcome to your Fintech Chatter debut.
Thank you very much, Dexter. It's great to be here. And funnily enough, it's probably the perfect time to actually have a conversation because I'm right now in Singapore in this hotel room, and we've just wrapped up a major crypto conference, and there's a lot to talk about. So I'm excited.
Fantastic. Well, look, before we talk about your time in Singapore, Token 2049, maybe if you could share with our listeners a bit about Elbate and who you are.
So, as the name implies, I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Elbate Group. One of our products, the product that we started out with, was a crypto exchange back in 2017. So quite a long time ago now, at least in crypto terms.
Yeah.
Crypto is like dog years, so I feel like I've been in it in 100 years.
Yeah.
But I'm more excited to talk about our latest product, faststables.com, because I think that's something that we're quite passionate about, increasing the utility of cryptocurrency in a way that isn't about the hype, isn't about the price is going to go to the moon, but solves everyday problems, especially for SMEs, business payments. That's what we're looking to solve. So it's a little bit about myself, but I also like long walks on the beach, and I have a dog and all of that.
Cool. Well, look, I'm really pleased that you mentioned that the kind of the distinction between the kind of products and the solutions. And whilst I think talking about cryptocurrency exchanges is cool, and that's something for another day, because I think particularly with the timing of this conversation and what you've been seeing in Singapore as well as about a year ago, the kind of my bold predictions was, hey, look, 2025 is the year TradFi and DeFi finally kind of hit head on and something starts to happen.
Well,
and it does appear like that is the case now. So maybe if you tell us a little bit more about the solution that you're working on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's quite fascinating. So operating a crypto exchange, major problem that we faced actually was access to banking services. And that's been quite difficult for us. We do have an Australian bank account, but it's not as easy as other businesses would.
Yeah, I think a lot of our listeners will be impacted by that. I've got an SMSF.
Yeah.
I can't, I have to go and, invest in, Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs rather than, kind of go on an exchange because my bank will block it. So it's, I think we're all victims of debanking, right? So,
well, and look, I think there's some reasons for it, particularly because at least in Australia, it has been a unregulated space. Australia's been lucky that it's had some wonderful exchanges. Our peers, we sort of self-regulate ourselves. And as far as controversies go, at least in the crypto space, Australia has done much, much better than other jurisdictions. And so that speaks volumes to the players and to the people here in Australia. But we've had to use stablecoins for ourselves to pay suppliers, employees overseas. We sometimes would take stablecoins as a form of payment. And so for us, it solved a problem we were having, which was, sort of cross-border business expenses and sending money overseas. And a bit of an aha moment sort of came for the team was, well, this solution is great, but I think, more Australian business, traditional businesses, not crypto businesses, your farmers, your wine producers, they would benefit from it greatly because they too also take US dollars as payment. And we thought, you know what, let's give our solution and open that up to the rest of the Australian business community. So it's really designed for non-crypto businesses, businesses that are exporting, consultants that have got clients overseas, freelancers that, work with different people all over the world, for them to be able to accept foreign stablecoins, stablecoins in US dollars. We'll be adding euros shortly as well. And to be able to benefit from the advances in the blockchain technology. And so we think now is the right time for that. We can by far beat the bank's FX rates. But the other benefits are, that instant settlement time. Instead of waiting 5 days for a Swift transfer, you can get that, within 2-3 minutes. And there's no sort of cap, so if it's a business invoice for, $2 million, you don't need to go through this and this and that. And that's something that I think, for us at least, is quite a moment in our industry, because we can finally sort of showcase the capabilities of what we've been yapping on about for quite a long time.
And I think it's such a kind of important example that you've given in going into that level of detail, because if you look at the conversations on any social platform, and you kind of see people, and the hype merchants around stable coins, and they talk about how it solves all these problems. But Revolut and Wise solved this problem a decade ago. So kind of, you're kind of 10 years late to the party, right? But what they haven't solved is the business to business that you've talked about, right? They've solved, me having to send my mum, through a wire transfer, or go to the newsagents, and kind of, go to Western Union and send money. Those businesses have solved that, right? So my mum can Revolut $20 and say, it's the kids, can you get them an ice cream? And it's perfect for those moments, right? And it's had a fundamental shift on my life, on my mum's life. But as a business, right, I kind of just got stung with fees because client in Singapore, sending me money, and they were paying in Singaporean dollars, and I was receiving in Aussie dollars, and the banks benefited from that, when stable coins would have been a much more efficient and faster and cheaper solution to that style of transaction.
Yeah. And I think, and also in my wallet right now, I've got a Revolut card, so when I go on the MRT, so I'm not, there's no one solution to everything. And I think that's been one of the problems of the industry, is it's sort of going, blockchain is a solution, the ultimate solution, and the only solution to everything.
There's no room to coexist, right? Or be part of an ecosystem.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's just the wrong way of thinking, because what a business requires is optionality. Some of their clients would prefer to pay via Swift. That's just how they work. Some clients might be more forward thinking, might have access to stablecoins a lot easier. So if that client is based in, somewhere where it's harder to access stablecoins, then how can they pay you? So these are some problems, and I think you just need to offer optionality and a mix of solutions here.
Yeah. Well, you're in Singapore at the moment, and whenever I go to Singapore, there's a couple of things that I love, and the first is, I think, first thing I do is download the Grab app again. Right? Because it's just so seamless.
It's so
right?
convenient.
Like it's brilliant, right? But then the other thing that always strikes me, and it's almost like there's such a paradox in this, is that I go into a store and I go to pay for something, and I got a choice of about 5 different payments terminals, like
QR codes, and that's right. But that speaks volumes, because Singapore is quite a international city. So that optionality of offering whichever payment option the person is most comfortable with. If it's somebody visiting from China, they can accept WePay and Alipay. If it's somebody from Australia, they can accept Visa and MasterCard. So that optionality, I think, is probably what makes Singapore so strong in the financial sector, is instead of going, we only support this, they've gone the route of, there's a solution to every little problem, and so we will accept all the solutions. You pick off the menu whichever one you like.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about some of the successes that you've had so far with the product, but also the challenges that you've faced as well. And I feel like this could be the moment where I do a virtual arm reach and kind of put my arm around you, give you a bit of a hug when we talk about the challenges piece.
Yeah. I didn't have white hairs when I started this, so.
Mate, I had beautiful long flowing locks, right?
Who said fintech and crypto is not stressful?
Yeah.
For us, Fast Stables was launched about 2 months ago. And in that time, we've assisted startups in Australia to receive the capital from Singapore, actually, funny enough.
Cool.
So the investor was going to invest in US dollars. And they actually said, listen, can we pay you in a US dollar stablecoin? Because that's what we've been doing with some other investments. And we just find it so much easier. But we're still happy to do the US dollar way. You just would have to wait a little while. We'll have to transfer to our HSBC in London and blah, 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 blah. And so, the person rang me up and said, Morty, you're the crypto guy. What's the stablecoin thing? Is it safe? Can you help me? So that's been one of our successes. Another one is a freelancer. So
that was actually a VC investing in a firm, and you've
correct in Melbourne,
that
in Australia.
Oh wow,
that's right. And that was for a couple million.
Yeah.
So and it was seamless.
Yeah.
There wasn't any sort of, okay, the investor said it's sent, and then you're waiting 5 days going, okay, is the Swift thing going to work? Am I going to get it?
Yeah.
Did I give them the wrong account details? Yeah. What's happening? So that's something we love, right? That's a real problem. And at the same time, they did it at a cheaper rate than whatever. And we sort of benchmarked this against various FX rates from the big four, HSBC, the Citibank, all the way down to Revolut and Wise and Airwallex. And we still came out better. And I think stablecoins was much, much smaller 5 years ago. These days, the amount of liquidity available means that those FX rates can be really precision and can actually be better than what you can access from the banking in the traditional sector.
Brilliant. So we're going to talk about the challenges.
And we've got freelancers and all of those stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, freelancers. Yeah. Talk me through that, because that is something that, if there's a use case for kind of huge amount of transactions, high volume transactions, it's that.
Yeah.
That you've got multiple currencies, very different payments rails in all of these different jurisdictions. From a payroll perspective, you run a business, I run a business. You can't just click send, right?
No. So, I mean, especially after COVID, I think there's been an explosion in the creator economy, in the gig economy, in freelancers going, instead of working for one company, I'm going to put my skills and apply it to many different companies. And the world's become quite internationalized. You have people that live in Australia, their clients are in Dubai, themselves might have an assistant that might be somewhere else. And that's all well and good. But I think the payments part is still quite cumbersome, right? Revolut or Wise, they're not available in every jurisdiction. So if it's not available in the jurisdiction that you're sending out to, you got to find another way. So for us, freelancers is an area where we're really focusing on, because we think stablecoins can be a great option for them to offer to their clients. They can still offer the traditional one. You can pay me by the Stripe app or the integrations, or if you've got access to a stablecoin, I also accept a stablecoin. And that's where I think the world's going, is payments are going from being settled on the Swift network, which is 50 years old or 60 years old, if not older, to a digital version of that, a version that actually takes the advantages of the internet, that instantaneousness, that verification. So that's all great, but the challenges are vast. For us, it's still regulation, it's still banking, it's areas where even at the global level, it's not fully fleshed out. in the United States, what was it called? The Genius Act. There's a funny story to why it's called the Genius Act, but maybe that's a story for another time. But the Genius Act is all about stablecoins. So in the US, stablecoins are now fully regulated, it's fully recognized, and there's pretty harsh rules around it. They can't have stablecoins where it's not backed by actual US dollars. Those companies that issue it must be audited every 12 months. They must show proof of their reserves. They as the coin itself. Now, if other parties want to offer interest themselves, that's fine, but the issuer cannot. So what they call interest-bearing stablecoins, they're out. And in Australia, I think we're going to go down that route as well, with ASIC last week announcing, finally crypto regulations and licensing, and stablecoins make up a large part of that. So it's still a challenge because these are very recent. This is only in the last, month or two.
Yeah.
So it's still not fully law. Still not fully understood what the implications are going to be. So it's all these challenges of speaking with regulators, having these conversations, speaking with with our banking partners,
and that's
viewpoints.
that's been going on since 2018, right? And I think for me, the breakthrough last week was like, oh, it's not another policy submission roundtable. Remember the one that you did in 2020? Can we do that again? That we did again in 2021, and then we did in 2022. This time it's a
different location.
And then there was a change in government, right? And so we did it again in 2023, and then we started again in 2024. So it kind of, for me, the breakthrough was, wow, we're actually at the point now where we were hoping we were going to be in 2020, right?
Yeah. I mean, and just off camera, as we were speaking before, as I was saying, is I think there's a bit of a lag factor between invention and actual utility, use case, and regulations catching up with it. And I think we're now at that sort of intersection where the inventions that were developed 10 years ago, the laws and regulations and use cases are finally being realized now. And so actually your prediction about 2025 being right is pretty spot on. Maybe I should borrow your magic 8-ball or something.
Look, one of the things, and Simone Joyce, who used to be the chair at Fintech Australia, once called me the Oracle of Fintech. And it's not because I got a crystal ball. It's just because I get to speak to people like you day in, day out, multiple times. And I'm really fortunate in that I speak to people right across the ecosystem, both crypto, fintech, and fintech's got many different streams to it. And I just think that breadth, right, and speaking to people who they're actually in the trenches, Morty, right? Like, I know you've just been to an event, but it's probably a luxury for you because you've just been head down, bum up, building stuff, right? Like for the last few years. And so, I get to speak to the builders, right? And I think kind of when you have that and you have, the ear of regulators and you speak to you've got people in the banks as well. And you kind of, you just pick up the mood and the sense of what's happening. And I think when you kind of focus on and you see the kind of the successes in the past and they say that, kind of history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And just the journey that fintech itself was on, right, where it went through this exact same process of trying to fight for, kind of credibility, and then it got it, and crypto is going to face the same issue that fintech did. Fintech's early successes were Zip, Afterpay. Look, those guys, it was, brilliant businesses, but regulatory arbitrage.
That's right.
Right. And Uber, regulatory arbitrage, right? Like you could get your costs right down because you didn't have all the regulatory costs.
Yeah. I remember when they were offering to pay your fine in Queensland, because when they launched in Queensland, the government said, if you're an Uber driver and we catch you, we'll fine you.
Yeah.
And Uber said, don't worry about it. If you get a fine, give it to us and we'll pay for it.
Yeah. So I think, look, it's kind of a really exciting time. But now with that, kind of what's the movie Spider-Man? He says, with great power comes great responsibility. And
it's actually my favorite
kind of this is where, this is where I think kind of Singapore, token 2049, I think is the kind of, that's the point of, okay, right? You joked offline, where we said there were more ties than there were t-shirts this time round. And I think that's kind of the signal, right? Like that, hey, it's kind of, it's about to get different, right? And there's going to be different scrutiny and those things. But look, I'd love to hear about like what you've seen this last week, what your sense is, what's got you excited, kind of what your prediction's going to be for next year, right? Because then I can hijack that and put it into my 2026 ones.
Yeah, whenever you release that, please let me know because I'd be interested in reading it. I think this year more so than any other year where I've seen the focus has been on businesses, institutions, banks, governments, and how they can use and utilize and how they are already using it, this blockchain technology. And so it's now a mixture of, it's not just about where another crypto exchange you can buy Bitcoin. Now JP Morgan is going, we're doing interbank settlements with other banks using stablecoins. And we can, that helps us run a better bank. It helps our inefficiencies. It's governments looking into this sector going, how can we utilize some of this for our own payments infrastructure? Instead of building out, especially in the developing world, for them, they've got a keen interest. Some of their payment infrastructure hasn't been updated since, many decades ago, and they could update it to something similar to what Australia had, say, in 2010 and 2020. But actually they're thinking, can we just leapfrog that? Can we just forget about that and just go straight into fully digital banking?
Yeah.
And so the conversations have been fascinating because it's gone from speculation and what's the next big coin going to do and how much it's going to go, to how can we solve problems? How can we upgrade our infrastructure? How can we reduce our inefficiencies? There was more businesses marketing to institutions at this conference than they were marketing to retail clients.
Yeah.
You'd go up to their booth and say, okay, well, what size is your business? Oh, it's under 100. We only work with, businesses up to, 5,000 plus sort of thing, where our focus is on the Black Rocks of the world. So that's been a very fascinating and I think a pivotal moment in the crypto industry.
Yeah.
The other thing to note is, I think, is as crypto, and we saw this with fintech apps that came out, the Revoluts and the Wise and the Up banks, and some of them have already been, bought up by Bendigo Bank and by NAB, but it still benefited everyday Australians, because what it did was it made the big four banks go, okay, we need to improve our customer service. We need to build a better app, better interfaces. We need to speed up our products and services. We can't just lie there and do nothing. And I think that's what crypto is doing the same way, is it's forcing the banks, it's forcing the institutions and the governments to re-look at the kind of services they provide and think, how can they do it better now? How can we fix those things that customers have been complaining about for so long? But can we use some of these technologies to sort of solve those? So that's where I think crypto, it's not about, it's only for retail. It's only, it's the one solution to everything. It's already benefiting everyday people right now, because the products and services they use, they're being upgraded. And you might, your bank, certain banks are already using it for that interbank settlement layer. So you might be indirectly already benefiting from that.
Yeah. Well, our listeners are probably going to think we've scripted this whole thing, right? But to come full circle on that observation that you made offline about innovation. So in 2019, I was in Singapore for the Singapore Fintech Festival. I was actually chatting to one of the founders or execs at Zenja at the time, right? So as you talked about,
I remember Zenja, yeah.
So they're kind of digital banks, neobanks, and back then, Facebook, or Meta now, had announced Libra, right?
That's right.
And all of the talk back then was like, hey, this is a massive threat to our sovereignty. And so the guy who was talking to it, Zenja, a guy called Andy Rigg, we caught each other and basically got mobbed after they'd just done this presentation by monetary authorities, regulators from all of Southeast Asia, right? All these different countries saying, hey, we want to talk to you about, because they were actually saying, oh, we're doing like a white label platform now, right? So you can use our technology and build your own banking app, right? And they mobbed them and they're like, look, we're kind of really concerned about Libra, right? Like what this means for our sovereignty. We got to fix this payments and banking, kind of these unbanked people. We got to give them, kind of banking services through mobile, through a mobile app. And it's amazing to hear you talk about kind of now we are like pretty much 6 years on from that to the day, right? It was in November 2019. And it's exactly the same conversation and same concerns, but it's now that it's ready.
Yeah, no, that's right. And the competition is always good at the end of the day for the end consumer, right? So if there's competition where it's forcing businesses to better their products, and more importantly, if it's lowering the barrier to entry. So where my prediction is we're going to have almost all major banks in the world will be using stablecoins and blockchain for their own businesses. They may not offer it to customers. They will be using it, and if not already. The other point is we're going to have a lot more competitors that will offer bank-like services that will force those same banks to reduce their fees, better their FX rates, improve their services. And ultimately, it's at the end of the day, it's the consumer that wins, right? They get the better product, they get the cheaper product, they get access to more services. Now, whether they want to use the latest and greatest, crypto app or something like that, or they want to stick to this, to the bank that they know, they're still going to benefit from it.
Yeah. Cool. So Morty, it's been fantastic chatting with you. Before we wrap up, we get incredible talent listening to this show, but also we get a load of founders who might definitely want to get money in the bank as quick as possible if they're raising capital. So I guess, look, first off, if there's anybody out here who's interested, who thinks, hey, I'd love to be part of this mission and journey, where can people find out more about careers at Elbate?
So right now, in terms of capital raising, we're not capital raising just yet.
No, I was thinking more for founders who are capital raising and can use your stable coin
Right.
facility.
So, well, look, I'm actually quite open on social media. So the instead of giving you some sort of inbox and all of that, is actually find me on LinkedIn.
Well, mate, it's been fantastic to have you on the show. Really appreciate the insights. Good luck with the new product as well. And look, kind of really pleased to see that you've kind of made it through the winters. Looks like we're kind of, it's going to be an extended summer. Looks like it could be an extended summer. So, so look, all the best for 2026 as well. And would love to get you back on the show at some point in the future so we can talk about your progress.
No, appreciate that. And I love talking with yourself, and hopefully, we get to have another opportunity to speak again.
Absolutely. As always, folks, thanks for tuning in. If you are new to the show, then make sure you follow us if you're listening on podcast, or hit subscribe on YouTube. If you're coming back, thank you very much for your support. It really does mean a lot to me. And until the next one, keep safe,